Hey there, hope all is well. Back here today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, China's new Silk Road reshapes trade without the dollar. I'm going to be covering a recent event that took place over in Asia with the Belt and Road Forum, which included 29 nations that all gathered together to begin discussing plans for the new Silk Road, which is a new plan that's going to be implemented, led by China in a way of shaping trade and kind of shifting power from the west to the east in the days ahead. So I have about 8 or so articles I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to just skim through the surface, give you something to look at, and at the very end, share with you my thoughts on how I believe that this will be a groundbreaking moment for the Federal Reserve note, aka the dollar, and also my thoughts on what lies ahead as this thing unfolds. So let's dive into today's article. So here I have 8 articles in front of me, of which we're going to go through all of them briefly. So the very first article here is Building the New Silk Road, which is an older article, came out in 2015 by the Council of Foreign Relations, but I thought it would be something good to start off with because it gives an overall background of what the Silk Road is and what the plans were behind the making of it originally back in 2013 by the president of China. And then the next article here is from the Voice of America, and it says China's Belt and Road meeting sets goals for huge development plan. And one thing I found quite interesting is that as you look through the pictures here, you see all these world leaders, but you do not see President Trump, or even prior to now, you didn't see President Obama either, being that they weren't really included in this at this current moment, or have yet to buy into the idea of power shifting out to the east. And then the next article here is from NPR, and it says China's president outlined plans for a new Silk Road. Next one here is from Newsweek, and it says Russian President Vladimir Putin backs China's new Silk Road project. And the next one here is from a Chinese source, and it says Yi calls for renewing Silk Road spirit. And then the next one here is from The Guardian. It says China's Yi plan lays out a 900 billion Silk Road vision amid claims of empire building. And then the next article here is also from Voice of America, and it says Russia seeks investment, trade links on China's new Silk Road. And then the very last article here is from Quartz.com, and it says China's new Silk Road will include nightclubs, yacht queues, and 24-hour surveillance in Pakistan. So let's dive into the very first article here. So from the Council of Foreign Relations, it gives a little bit of a background, and I'll just read through the top, and then as always, you can scroll below if you're interested in reading more. It says more than 2,000 years ago, China's Yang Dynasty launched the Silk Road, a sprawling network of commerce that links South and Central Asia with Middle East and Europe. It says today the idea of the new Silk Road, an intertwined set of economic integration initiatives seeking to link East and Central Asia, has taken hold in the United States and China for very different reasons. It says in 2011, the United States launched its vision of a greater Central Asian economic and infrastructure integration in the hopes of supporting political stability as it withdrew from Afghanistan. It says by 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping was alternatively articulating his own vision for China-led Silk Road that would streamline foreign trade, ensure stable energy supplies, promote Asian infrastructure development, and consolidate Beijing's regional influence. It said it remains to be seen if the United States and China will clash over the competing plans for developing energy resources in Central Asia's Turkmenistan, creating the infrastructure in Pakistan, or winning political influence with local governments throughout Asia. So basically, this article here just start off with just give an idea of how the history behind the original Silk Road that existed about 2,000 years ago under the Chinese-led dynasty, and how since then it's kind of died away. And so since 2013, with all the things that's happened with our global economy, predominantly the QE, of which the Federal Reserve began just monopolizing and counterfeiting unlimited amount of supply of Federal Reserve notes, China decided to basically beginning their plans for the future outside of the Federal Reserve-led system. So just to give a little bit more of what's going on here, it says, what was the Silk Road? It says the original Silk Road came into being during the westward expansion of China's Han Dynasty from 206 BC to 220 AD, which forged trade networks throughout what are today Central Asian countries as Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan. A lot of stands. As well as modern-day Pakistan and India to the south. It says those routes eventually extended over the 4,000 miles to Europe. Central Asia was thus epicenter of one of the first waves of globalization, connecting Eastern and Western markets, spurring immense wealth and intermixing cultural and religious traditions. And so it says valuable Chinese silk, spices, jade, and other goods moved west, while China received gold and other precious metals, ivory, and glass products. It says the route peaked during the first millennium under the leadership of the first Roman and then Byzantine empires and the Tang dynasty. So basically, the president of China, had a vision of trying to recreate what was already a thriving and very profitable the route of trade for them centuries ago, and trying to get that going now, looking ahead. So more information below if you're interested. Next article here is from Voice of America. It says China's Belt and Road meeting sets goal for huge development plan. And as I hinted at earlier, you have a lot of nations here, the representatives of a lot of nations here, none from the United States, or I believe maybe even Canada. So it says countries involved in China's Belt and Road Development Program have agreed on all action plan for a long list of goals. It says 29 heads of states met in Beijing for 2 days during the first Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. Vladimir Putin was among the leaders attending. It says officials from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund also were there. It says Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke at the gathering on Sunday. He said no country can rely only on itself in a world in which nations are interdependent and face worldwide problems. It says China has promised $124 billion for infrastructure and development projects in countries taking part in the Belt and Road project. And so it looks like China is going to foot a little bit of the bill to get this thing up and running. It says the broader plan includes a Silk Road economic belt for trade activity on land and a maritime Silk Road for trade over the sea. It says the term Silk Road describes the ancient trade path that connected China and Europe and the world. So just a brief description of what took place over this past weekend with those leaders. So here we're going to go into the NPR.org, and it says China's president outlines plans for a new Silk Road. So they're going to lay out a little detail as to what that is. It says on Sunday, President of China outlined plans for a new Silk Road. This is an ambitious plan that would see billions of dollars invested in highways, ports, and railways connecting some 65 countries on 4 different continents. And let's talk about what NPR. Good morning. So it goes on to have a conversation with someone who was actually there. So 65 countries will be connected, 4 different continents, and so that's some pretty big trade there. So that's kind of the outline of what they plan on putting together in the days ahead. So if you're interested in listening to that conversation from the person who's there, feel free to scroll down below and dive into that. Next article here is from Newsweek. It says Russian President Vladimir Putin backs China's new Silk Road project. So here it has Mr. Putin sitting down playing the piano as he waits for President of China to, I guess, come into the lobby. And it says Russian President Vladimir Putin gave his support on Monday to China's nearly $1 trillion proposal to open a new Silk Road. So now it's $1 trillion, it looks like, at the end of the day. It says Putin publicly backed the controversial plan to revive the old trade route as President Xi of China pledged an additional $124 billion to the project, which was announced in 2013, is officially known as the Belt and Road. Says speaking at the forum in Beijing, Putin said that the proposal was highly in demand, the Moscow Times reported, and assured the audience that Russia would be involved. So the question would be, why would Vladimir Putin say it's highly in demand? So this goes back to the whole idea of rethinking the dollar. And if you go back and if you take some time and Google the word de-dollarization, you'll see how that even prior to 2013, China and Russia were always talking about, dethroning the dollar and moving away from the dollar. So that would be my guess as to why you say it's highly in demand, is because they're trying to begin weaning themselves off the use and the global demand for the dollar in trade. So just give it a little bit more. It says at the 2-day event, Xi attempted to put to rest fears that a revived Silk Road would expand China's influence in Europe and Asia, telling the forum, according to the Reuters, China is willing to share its development experience with all countries. We will not interfere in other countries' internal affairs. We will not export our system of society and development model. And even more, we will not impose our views on others. So just reading into that quote there, kind of, what comes to mind is the fact that everything that he's proposing they're not going to do is probably what I would imagine the viewpoint of the world for us here in America, as how the Americans or United States of America government team seems to force themselves on countries and to impose their views and plans and to nations on the other side of the planet. So he's basically saying we're not going to do that. So, you know, who knows? It's early talk, but eventually, if he expands and they grow as much as they plan on growing, they're going to have a lot of say-so in how everything operates, especially if they're footing the bill. And so just to read a little bit more, it says leaders of 29 countries attended the forum. The U.S. and U.K. didn't send representatives, but reportedly support the project. So no one went as far as representing us or UK, but yet they supposed to support it. Right. It said India refused to send a representative to the forum because of its concern over part of the project known as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which crosses into Kashmir. It says while some countries are concerned about what reviving the Silk Road could mean for China's economic expansion, others are keen to reap the potential benefits of being involved in the project. So India wasn't there, and so it looks like, you know, the Pakistan/China agreement, you know, conflicts with India's and Pakistan's relations. So that's kind of why I'm sure they're holding out. But more information below if you're interested. The next one is a short article. It says Xi calls for renewing Silk Road spirit. And so here he's giving a little pep talk, and they're going to quote him as saying some good things about how this could be beneficial. It says on Beijing, May 14, Chinese President Xi called for renewing the Silk Road spirit when addressing a banquet held Sunday evening in honor of foreign guests attending the Belt and Road Forum. It says before the banquet, Xi and his wife greeted the guests at the Great Hall of People. It says while proposing a toast at the banquet, Xi said, quote, more than 2,000 years ago, our ancestors what does it say? Our ancestors, driven by a desire for friendship, opened the overland and maritime Silk Roads and thus started a great era of exchanges among civilizations. It says, quote, today we gather here to renew the Silk Road spirit and discuss the Belt and Road development for international cooperation. This is both a continuation of our shared legacy and a right choice for the future. So it's interesting how he mentioned international cooperation and right choice for the future. So I like to look at the small words as having great meaning. And so international cooperation is basically saying that in referencing to the West or the United States of America, they haven't been cooperating as much other than forcing themselves upon people. And then it says the choice for the future is his vision of what is to come as far as how this will probably be the primary commerce or trade that, you know, has everything going business-wise on this planet. So interesting perspective. More information is down if you're interested in finding out below. Next article is from The Guardian. It says China Xi lays out 900 billion Silk Road vision amid claims of empire building. And so it says global leaders attend Belt and Road Infrastructure Summit to praise the plan Xi says will bring a new golden era of globalization. So here you have a China flag and countryside, and China looks like. And just to give you an idea what's going on, it says during 2-day showcase of what some calls an ambitious development project, ever by comparing his country to a peace-loving explorer set on transforming the world with treasure-laden galleys, not warships, guns, or swords. Speaking at the start of the high-profile summit, the Belt and Road, the president hailed his multi-billion-dollar infrastructure crusade as a means of building a modern-day version of the ancient Silk Road, a new golden age of globalization. Then in quotes from saying, the glory of the ancient Silk Road shows that geographical dispersion is not insurmountable, he told the 29 heads of states. He says, however, Xi took to the stage. His signature foreign policy initiative faced a backlash with India launching a scathing attack on the 900 billion Chinese plan and announcing it would boycott proceedings. Says Xi told a different story on Sunday, painting what he calls the project of the century as a bold and inclusive attempt to kickstart a new era of globalization. So the project of the century. So another key word, you know, looking ahead next 100 years plus, he envisions China being a major player in the monetary system, obviously, if you're going to be doing all this trade. And the most important thing is what currency will they be using? And it's good to say it will not be the Federal Reserve note, aka the dollar. And so in a 45-minute address, Communist Party chief vowed to throw his weight behind a global construction spree, stretching all the way from Asia across Europe and to Africa and to the Americas. So it looks like down the line, either the Americas, North America may join by force because we'll have to, or we will be cooperative and join because that will be the direction that the future is involved with. So just more information as to the whole Belt Road. If you're interested, feel free to scroll down below. Two more articles. says here from the Voice of America, Russia seeks investment trade links on China's new Silk Road. So now we have Mr. Putin again. It says President Putin is heading to China Sunday to join the leaders of 27 other nations at the Belt and Road OBR summit in Beijing. It says a massive China-led project aims to revive the ancient Silk Road and maritime trade routes. It says while China plans to invest tens of billions of dollars in the ambitious vision, few details have been made clear on how the project will proceed. It says Russia wants investment. So here we have Mr. Putin putting in his thoughts on it. It says the lack of specifics and long-term prospects for the project has led some observers to conclude China's new Silk Road so far is about politics and symbolism. But analysts in Moscow said Russia is mainly in it for the money. It says first, Russia's economy desires foreign investment and it hopes to get some funds through the OBOR, says a gentleman of Carnegie Moscow Center. Says second, Russia wants to bring new drive to the dying Euro-Asian Economic Union by connecting it with the OBR. And then third, Russia wants to compensate the vanished economic agenda for the SCO or Shanghai Cooperation Agreement Organization. It says with the Chinese-led OBR. Fourth, Russia wants to make European countries more nervous with the prospects of Russia-Chinese economic cooperations. And so it says China in the last few years has invested more than $300 billion in projects in One Belt and One Road countries, and Chinese officials say more than 50 agreements will be signed at next week's meeting in Beijing. So there's more countries coming on board. It says leaders attending the summit included other two founding members of the struggling Russia-led Euro-Asian Economic Union, Belarus and Kazakhstan. So it looks like they are in the process of trying to work all this out still, but the idea is that they are it's well underway for it to take place down the line. So last article here, and just sums up some of the details of what's planned with the Pakistan deal. It says China's new Silk Road will include nightclubs, yacht queues, and 24-hour surveillance in Pakistan. So has a picture here of the president in the middle and the president of Turkey, I believe, and this might be Pakistan to the far left. And so it says here, ever since China's sweeping One Belt Road initiative in 2013, details on how it has remained scarce. But this week, thanks to the Pakistani newspaper, Dawn, we have one of the most comprehensive looks so far into the key project. It says the land corridor that runs through Pakistan, connecting China to the Arabian Sea. It says the Belt and Road scheme aims to connect Asia, Europe, and Africa and the Middle East via infrastructure development, includes roads, ports, and rail lines. And then it shows a little map here of what the China-Pakistan economic corridor looks like. And it starts in Kashgar, China, and goes all the way to Sukkur, Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken. So just a little map there. It says, but the impact of the OBOR on participating countries could run deeper than that. It says, if the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, is anything to go by, according to a 231-page document obtained by Dawn, CPEC will lead to much more than transport lines. Then it gives you an idea, gives a list of things that are included. It says, a closer look at CPEC, made possible by a $54 billion development package from Beijing, offers insights into what a new international trade order led by China might look like. And so it gives an idea of some bullets here. It says what's included in that deal: thousands of acres of agricultural land leased to China companies, which will set up demonstration projects. It says a surveillance system spanning cities across the country with 24-hour surveillance. It says a national fiber optic backbone for internet traffic, as well as terrestrial distribution of broadcast television, industrial parks. It says a coastal tourism industry, free and low interest rate loans to Pakistan and therefore. So just to give you some of the details of what's included in that deal with Pakistan, it's good to say that other countries may have the same thing. So it looks like, as I wrap this up, it looks like the goal at the end of the day with this Silk Road economic belt is to begin shifting power out east. Why is that? Because the Federal Reserve, the United States government, the time of being the current reserve currency is coming to an end, being that throughout history, every less than a century or so, there's an economic shift of power from one nation to another. And it looks like since we've had our Great Recession in 2008 and the actions taken by the powers that be, predominantly in the Federal Reserve to basically just begin counterfeiting money with 3 rounds of QE, which has boosted the Fed's balance sheet to astronomical amounts of money, trillions exactly, which has expanded the money supply, which has diminished purchasing power from everyone holding Federal Reserve notes and treasuries around the world. And so for the most part, the dollar is becoming toxic. And so by it being toxic, no one wants to hold it or do business with it, because the Western world has abused their privileges of being the world reserve currency. And so now we're witnessing change right before our very eyes. And so I believe that this Silk Road Initiative, led by China and all the participants, is a way of saying that this is how we're going to start off beginning the next era of a reserve currency, whatever it may be, not necessarily China, but it will be something other than a Federal Reserve note. And so the question would be, what did that leave you and I with? Those that are dependent upon and only know the Federal Reserve note as being the only medium of exchange that the world recognizes as something of value. That means that all the paper that's floating around the world will come back to the United States eventually, one way or another, which will lead to inflation and measures that we could never imagine. Ultimately, what that does is it steals the purchasing power, steals the wealth, the freedom, and everything else from those who are not aware of what's taking place right before their very eyes. So I believe that this message here, this is the beginning of what will come. And now it's just a matter of what will the United States do as they witness power shifting out east. And so most people don't tend to give up their power very easily. So they will begin to fight or come up with something to kind of slow this down or derail it altogether. So just sharing my thoughts on this whole China New Belt economic road system that's underway. Just the beginning. This is history in the making that people outside of this message, outside of this platform, may not be aware of. So with that being the case, I want to cut this short. Hope you have a good day. If you found this to be informative and educational, please share those with family and friends so that they can become aware. And if you're new to RTD, click subscribe and give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on what you think about this story. And other than that, look forward to bringing you more news. Enjoy your day. Thanks.